welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 343, The Fast and the Furious, Lap 14. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too, and this episode is brought to you by the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ, originally known as the People's Temple Full Gospel Church, which was an American new religious organization that's affiliated with the Christian church. Shout out to the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ.
Well, shout out to that People's Church, and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. I don't know the type of sponsors you've reached out to for this lap. I guess I'm going to uncover the theme as we go along. I did not expect to be sponsored by a church, but here we are.
It might be a lot of churches, just as a hint.
Okay. Good to know.
You didn't figure it out?
With us.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean, look.
Check out their new church in Guyana.
Okay. With us tonight, all lap long, every core Fast and Furious movie, we have with us Walt, Hickey, and Bhasin. Hello, gentlemen.
What is up?
Oh, hey.
How's it going?
Welcome.
You are here. Are you regretting this at all yet?
Absolutely not. Not at all.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
For an hour,
we did a good one so
minutes.
far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe and I were talking today, and we're like, we don't know at all, like, the angle with which you want to analyze these movies. Like, we're just, we're here for the ride. I mean, this is our show, but you guys are the guests, so we have a conversation starter because this lap is our 80s cult movies lap. Like, it is a theme that has been sponsored by some of our patrons, and so we're, for better or worse, analyzing these movies through as though they were 80s movies, kind of, but really, we can talk about whatever. So before we get into the conversation starter, remind our listeners, how many times have you seen this first movie before, or including, this time that you watch it for this?
I think I'm going to go somewhere around 220.
Yeah, that's a good number. That's a solid number.
Mm-hmm. Might be more. I think it's around. I hope it's only 20.
Are you counting all the times that it's on, like, USA, that you put it on halfway through, or not counting those?
No. I am counting the times where, like, I'm doing work and I need to put something.
Oh, those count.
Okay,
yeah, those count.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, if you come in, like, halfway, 3/4 of the way through, that's not a full.
No. It's got to be a whole.
So then in the hundreds, I'm assuming, at that point.
In the hundreds. Absolutely. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, and any one of those will work.
I think that I have seen this movie maybe 4 times. It is the one that I've seen the less.
Ooh.
Really?
I think that I watched it, I saw it once, and then I think I watched it for work, and I watched it today, and I'm assuming maybe just sometime in between. It is by far my least watched of these films.
Interesting.
I love the sentence, I watched it for work. Like, I know you did, and I know that, like, that's why you're here, but, like,
Yeah.
I watched it for work.
Because imaginarily, we are doing the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, technically, listen, according to the IRS, that's absolutely what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is interesting. I was looking back at the rankings. At the end of this lap, I want to get both of your updated rankings. We have Kim's. I don't have Walt. Walt, you might not have given us rankings when you were. I don't know if
we're gonna save it till the end, please.
Down, so don't tell us.
I'm gonna save it to the end. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
but you will not know. I have a ranking so far in my heart because I've seen one film. And you can rank one film one way. So I'm not gonna divulge it, but like no, I will tell you at the end of this how I rank these things, because gosh, this movie feels like a time machine. Took me to a completely different era.
Absolutely.
In cinema.
Kim had this at number 1, so that's just off the bat. Like, this was
loved.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we're probably still there.
This is the best movie in the Fast and Furious franchise.
Calm down.
Okay.
It's rankings based on what you want, Walt. Like, you could be ranked by the ones you like the most. We don't necessarily go best.
Sure.
I think, so I think, you saying this is a time capsule. So Joe and I had this conversation starter question, like, what's the most 80s thing in this movie? Because we had a couple patrons sponsored laps. So in between each of these, we're watching a different 80s cult movie that they picked. Our other patrons are doing 80s cult movies that we're watching on the Patreon. And so we're just
spoilies after this. Next time we're still going to ask you.
Yeah. So that's going to be our conversation starter just to kick things off. And so we're, all these movies came out obviously in the 2000s, but it is, I realized in watching this movie, you say it's a time capsule, so much of this movie feels like it could only happen in 2001. Some of it is like kind of 80s, some of it's kind of like 60s. And I'm like, I don't know what the answer to our own question is. what's the most 80s thing, but like for better or worse, and both maybe, this is truly, as we talked about before, a time capsule. Like this is like 2001 distilled into 107 minutes.
Yeah. When I wanted to thank your Patreon subscribers for coming up with this theme, because I like, as I was engaging with the film, I was like, oh, I should keep an eye out in case anything from the 1980s happens. And then I meet some people who are the most 1980s people that I've ever met in my entire life. And
Ooh.
I'm so thrilled that you did this. Are we beginning now? Should I engage?
Yeah, please.
Yes, please. What's
Go
your
where
most
it's gonna go.
80s thing that you saw in this movie?
These fucking cops.
Oh, I
These
knew
cops-
you were going to say
These
cops.
cops are the most 80s cops. Cops don't look like that anymore. Cops don't talk like that anymore. These cops are salty FBI guys who are like hanging out in a house in LA and
Smoking, drinking iced cappuccinos.
punching each other, and they're cool with it.
The gigantic iced decaf cappuccinos.
None of them are Latino. Like, this is the most 80s possible cop that you could ask for. Like, it is without question. Like, they have mustaches. They have mustaches that basically they saw a movie that had Burt Reynolds in it, and they went to their barber and they were like, "Make this happen to my face the best that you can." Tom Selleck, make it so, number one. And like that's just what these cops are. These cops are from a different era. They were encased in ice throughout the entire 90s. They don't know who OJ is besides a really good running back for Buffalo. They have no idea. These cops are precious, and they're endangered species because within a few years, these cops won't exist anymore. They'll just be chiseled guys who have a lot of leather on them and work for 3 other agencies that don't actually have enforcement powers. But these cops, they are FBI, LAPD. They're just salt of the earth, working class guys. They bring a lunch pail to work. God damn it! These cops, 1980s, amazing.
Great answer. Excellent answer.
Kim, did you have something that popped out of you as the most 80s thing about this movie?
Oh yeah, so I think we mentally see the underglow of those cars and we think like Need for Speed, Underground and stuff like that, like the street racing thing. And of course, it is from street racing, but that's an 80s neon. The vibrant neon glow just permeated everything between the year 1980 and 1989 was that's where it's from. And I looked it up. That undercarriage neon glow was patented in 1987.
Hell yeah.
Oh, so it's definitive. Kim, I love that you said that because I Googled the time period of so many things in this to make sure my 80s lined up correctly. So thank you. I'm glad you were doing the research as well, because I was.
Because I also Googled when was the floppy disk invented, because the compact computer with the floppy disk.
Yeah.
1962. It does feel very 80s, but my pick, I think, is kind of sort of piggybacking off Walt's. I think it's so funny in this movie how there's a scene where Brian just really wants a cigarette, and they're like, give him a cigarette. They're like, don't give him a cigarette. And like, there's not really a point to it, but like, I feel like talking about cigarettes and wanting a cigarette and like smoking a cigarette in a movie in a public space or whatever feels to me
movie.
Very 80s. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Joe, do you have something? I know you took a lot of notes on 80s things.
I took a lot of notes on 80s things, but I think my winner for the most 80s thing in this movie is Vince's mesh shirt.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's like so stereotypically 80s. I think that has to be my winner for this movie, this episode. Although I'm going to speed run through my list.
Okay.
The silver Airstream camper that the Torettos have, very 80s.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That eagle-eyed. Amazing. Go on.
All of Toretto's Market and Cafe is 80s. Like the signage, the counter that sits in the middle of the restaurant, the toaster that Mia has, all 80s. And then the last thing is metal toggle switches that Brian uses in the car. When was the last time you saw a metal toggle switch?
Yeah.
It looks so satisfying.
They do.
They're so great. Bring them back. I agree.
You know, I think something about this movie, and I don't know if this is where we're going to actually start the conversation at earnest. I want to hear what you guys have to think about this, because we're maybe looking at the entire franchise through like the what's going on for the future thing. But I feel like what makes this movie sort of special is that like it has personality. Like we love the newer ones, but the newer ones feel, for better or worse, like we're doing the Marvel thing, we're building a universe, and we're whatever.
Yep.
And this is just like, we're just having like dirty, sweaty dudes and like one girl like race, and like we're just they have quirks, and like that's what's going. And it feels different, and it feels a lot of movies have done this kind of thing, but it feels, especially within the franchise, so special and so unique. And I feel like a lot of that is just like, we don't have a huge budget. Like there's just stuff that we have around in warehouses from the 80s and 90s. We're just going to use this, and it feels true to the characters. And man, it
definitely feels lived in, and like it's also got like, as like when you design an aircraft over the course of the evolution process, you shave parts off, you realize we don't need this, this is getting in the way, this is slowing us down. And I like this movie because it's like full of that. It's got a lot like, he's got a nerdy friend who's kind of Weasley. Oh, he's got a friend who never again appears in the franchise. And like, he's got like, there's just elements going on that are, like, yeah, cool, street gang. We'll never see them again. Like, it's just like a lot of elements that you can see. They threw a lot of stuff at the wall to make this movie, and then they really just started picking and choosing some stuff. Yeah. And I think that it's just, it's incredible for that, because it's just like, yeah, like you have a bunch of like Matrix ass like friends, and like some of these dudes don't make it past movie one, and like I think that is it reminds you that every Dungeons and Dragons adventure starts in a small tavern.
It was very much the Matrix ass soundtrack too, by the way, over and over and over again.
Unrecognizable if the Matrix didn't exist. This film, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's also one of the only. There's two movies in the whole franchise that it can exist in a absolute vacuum. It's this and the third one. And yes, Tom shows up at the very end, but like he doesn't have to. That movie could have existed in a vacuum. This one, as the kickoff, could have been like, you could have ended it with that scene, and then we're done. Turns out we didn't, and we went on for another 20 years, but here we are.
I want to frame this entire lap, Joe, in a way that I hope that you don't absolutely hate. But we just finished a lap that took the longest time. It took 259 days between the first episode and the last episode of the last lap. That is our longest
Insane.
lap. This one is close, but it's not as long unless we have some bonus episodes in there or whatever. But this one, starting in February and ending in mid-October, the first time we see Brian O'Connor is outside Dodger Stadium. Baby, pitchers and catchers are reporting this. This is covering the entire baseball season. We are here from spring training to the postseason. This is this lap.
That's beautiful. I didn't make that connection, but thank you. That's I always tell Joey, if you try hard enough and believe in yourself, it's always baseball season.
And this one it's truly baseball season.
It really is. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, because they just started like spring training games, right? Like I saw. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Pitchers and catchers down there, getting loose, getting warm, getting ready.
Perfect.
Some of the best players still not signed. Scott Boras still holding up, but Yeah. What did you guys love about this? Is there things, I'm sure there's things you notice you never saw before, especially Walt only having seen this 4 times, but things that jump out to you the most right now, knowing that you're going to watch all the movies again over the next several months. What's your big takeaway from this first movie, other than, stripping things away like you just said? Like, what's your big, that's something, that's the way that we're starting this.
I don't think I ever there's so many one-liners in this movie and in every one of these movies that I had forgotten that Dominic Toretto's first line was, "What'd you put in that sandwich?"
Hey, what an introduction to a character, right?
You really get to know who he is, right?
The thing that I thought that was so interesting about it is when the podcast that became Blank Check first looked at the prequels of Star Wars, it looked at them as if like, okay, let's just pretend that these films existed and the original Star Wars never happened. What's going on in them? And if you were to watch The Phantom Menace, you'd be like, this Jar Jar guy seems like he's going to be a big deal. He's in a lot of screen time. He's very consequential. That is how I feel about, Jesse. Because if you think about Jesse's role in the heist, Jesse, for listeners who might not recognize Jesse, that's the fucking point. Jesse basically appears one more time, if I recall correctly, in Fast 5, at which point he is killed. But
Vince, you talk about Vince, yeah.
Okay, I apologize, I got the wrong guy.
It's okay. Yeah,
that's why we're here.
That's what I'm talking about. So Vince is a far more critical character in this than I think I would have appreciated having seen most of the rest of the franchise at some point. Like, I thought that, oh, cool, that when they do these heists, they shoot a gun with a grappling hook into a windshield, rip the windshield out, shoot a gun into the passenger seat, and then the coolest guy on the team launches himself into the thing, dispatches the driver, and then hijacks the heist. Now, this being a movie, I assume that the cool guy was going to be played by Vincent Robinette Diesel, that he was the one who was launching himself into the cab of a car, and instead, no, it's just his random friend. It's his friend Vince, who is then shot several times and is the crux of the moment that Brian reveals that he is a cop. And
there's a moment in this movie where, like, at the end when, he's trying to jack that truck, they start shooting a shotgun at him and he takes his helmet off, and it feels like this is a hero moment. Like, there's no reason to take the helmet off, but it's just like, I'm showing the audience my face.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you doing this? That feels wildly unsafe for multiple reasons. The guy's shooting bullets at you and you're hanging off the truck. Keep your helmet on. But that feels like, no, this is Matt Scholes' time to shine. He is going to be the guy who people remember from this movie. It's like, no, not really.
I'm the
He's
breakout star.
barely in one other movie.
I'm the guy who jumps in the car. I'm the guy who gets the job done. Never fucking see it again. Like,
and we've said this a bunch before, Walt, and I don't know if you know it or not, but in the like deleted scenes, Vince has like a very serious backstory. Like, he's very grumpy because his mom is dying in the hospital, and that's why he like comes late to the barbecue and things like that. Like they're like, "How's your mom?" And he's like, "Oh, she's dying. Like, she's dying, dude." And
Vin is literally just like, "Hey, why don't you bring her a plate? We've been thinking about her."
Oh,
like they shot that scene. You can watch that scene.
That's his childhood friend, right? I'm sure in an earlier version of this movie, a much more critical character.
Yeah, it definitely, like, there were moments where you're just like,
so you're right. Yeah, he is like a big, like, it feels like he should be a big part, and like there apparently was.
He's also the one who like realizes Brian's a cop, right? Like he's
right. He's right the whole time.
Yeah. I think that in Earth 2, where, like, a butterfly flapped its wings, Kennedy avoided being shot, whatever, Vince is the guy in the Fast and the Furious franchise. It's a Vince-based franchise. And, like, there's a spin-off world in which case this happened, because it just felt like he was set up so much, and then genuinely I've never seen him ever again.
He comes back?
I know he comes back, but, like...
just briefly.
Yeah, but it's, like, very, like, my childhood friend died, and now I have to avenge him, and blah, 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 blah. It's, that was just a peculiar part of it. I feel like we're far enough in. Can we talk about Race Wars, please?
Please.
The name of it?
No, just the concept of race wars. Like, I think the fact that the highlight of this film is an event called, as I understand it, was it considered to be the title for the film at one point? I think that,
and also they've never left it. It still exists as Race Wars in later films. And a chance that they
7.
have to change it, they go back to Race Wars much later and still call it Race Wars.
They could have left it in the first movie with Vince and never addressed it again. But instead,
yes, they should have. That's what we think.
They also retrofit that in a way that, like, later when Dom is explaining to Letty in a later movie, like, we invented this. Like, here it doesn't feel like they invented anything. They're just, like, sort of the stars of the show because, like, people love Dom. But, like, it doesn't feel like they run the show to the point where, like, Johnny Tran feels comfortable enough, like, rightly wronged. He is right to be upset, but, like, comes at Dom supposedly on his own turf. Like, Race Wars has a complicated history that, like, we wonder if in later movies, like, just Hector is running. Like, Hector's talking in this movie about, like, making to the Naira circuit, which I don't know if that ever happened. Who knows? But, like, he feels like he's got a whole character arc, but now he just seems like he maybe is just Dom's lieutenant in charge of Race Wars. I don't know. Maybe.
Kind of a good gig.
Holds Toretto back, too. Like, just the dirty grunts who are there. Instead of, if it's his thing, might as well let him do what he wants.
I would love somebody to have on their LinkedIn profile, lieutenant in charge of Race Wars. That's an important job.
That would go over really well.
It would go over.
Is that a full-time job or is that a part-time job?
Listen, it's actually a contract-based position, but like
a year, yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Listen, we're trying to improve it. It's just funding, but it's just such an like I'm glad that you brought up Johnny, because I think that Johnny really, like, I think he was consistently and reliably in the right over the course of this film. Is that a common conception, or am I wrong there?
I don't think he does anything wrong in the movie, right?
Like a low-time gangster, kind of, but, like, it's not Yeah.
Yeah, but so is our family.
It was like,
Yeah,
we've
of course.
agreed you're not supposed to be in my hood, so I blow up your car.
And there's actually, I mean, like, is Vito Corleone a good man? No, but do you understand why within the
Sure.
world he's respected and is obliging basically the culture that he's within? Absolutely. I think the same is the case for Johnny.
And Johnny's like, someone snitched on me, and I think it was you. And it was Toretto's group.
Nailed it. Got it. Won. You got it. And like, yeah, in his home where his family lives. A very nice house.
And his dad slapped him. It's crazy.
His dad slapped him. It's nuts.
It also, speaking of, like narking on him, I never narked on nobody. Like, it feels weird to me that Brian, like, I know that he's trapped, right? Like, he moans like a cop, whatever. Like, when he's caught sneaking around that garage, he thinks the way into Dom's heart is to rat on Hector.
Right.
Like, it feels like there should be a code of honor or ethics among these criminals. And it's just like, even though Hector's not like in the family, Hector's still kind of sort of a friend, right? Like, he's in the scene.
Yeah.
And to be like, hey, Dom, I'm trying to appeal to you. I'm trying to help you out here because that guy's doing bad stuff. It's like, that feels like doesn't have the honor among thieves that I would imagine. Or like, I can see Brian doing that, but I can't see Dom like
Accepting it.
embracing that.
Right.
Like, keep your mouth shut. Mind your own fucking business. I know this is a movie, and I know it's kind of a cheesy movie, but like, Brian stumbles in to Hector's garage to spy on them and just happens to find 3 Honda Civics. Well, he knew because he was ordering the parts. And then he like goes to Johnny Tran's garage and happens to find a stack of DVD players. Like, it looks like it's one of these guys for sure.
Although, why does Johnny Tran have all those DVD players?
We never
that he bought
know.
Legally, he just has a bunch of them that he's like reselling, I guess.
I like to imagine that he was actually like, although he's mad at Dom for sleeping with his sister and he blows up his car and doesn't want him on his turf, that he's actually somehow part of this distribution of the stolen DVD players. Like, those were actually the stolen DVD players, because the scene is small, that he, like, Dom sells a bunch of them to someone or wholesales the whole truck, and then Johnny Tran winds up with some of them because it's one of his racing buddies, and then that's just how it happens. So he was on the right path, just not at the right person.
Yeah.
Something
That's
about
my
how his hands
imagination.
aren't totally clean here,
Yeah.
regardless
Right.
of what
Yeah.
particular conspiracy that they're investigating is.
Yeah, I also think that like the heist element is like in a different movie, it's a little bit more like forward of like, oh, they're gonna do a couple heists over the course of it. Whereas in this one, remind me, but I believe that there's only like 2 on-screen heists: the first scene and then the one in which things go down, right?
100%, yep.
Those are good looking scenes. I thought that they did a real like I just pulled up like who the second unit director was, and
Ooh.
just genuinely journeyman career, has done a ton of stuff all over the place. Did a bunch of stuff in phase 2 of Marvel, like the Captain America the Winter Soldier, which I thought had great stunts. Iron Man 2, and a couple of Mel Gibson flicks. We don't need to get into that, but either way, like he won an award for it among the stunt crowd, and I just thought like.
For this movie, for Fast and the Furious 1?
There's the Taurus Awards is a stunt performance awards that has been given out since like 2000, and like this movie won for a ton of it: best driving, best vehicle work, best stuntman, best like stunt coordinator, that kind of stuff. And I was just very taken aback because part of it is just like, one reason I think this movie feels like it's from a completely different era is that this clearly was like stunts, like the people were doing stuff. I think a lot of movies, including the Fast and Furious lately, can have that kind of flubbery thing where things feel very weightless, where things feel very like the stunts are very, the animation's good, but I mean there's just a kinetic element to it that doesn't exist. I think even like when Paul Walker hits the NOS when he's doing that first race with Vin Diesel, and the bottom, like I think it rattles basically the bolts out of his car and this passenger seat floor drops through. That's a cool looking and like you can't like CGI that in the year of our Lord 2001. And so like I thought that it was very kinetic and felt very physical in a way that the movies kind of decrease over time.
So here's a question based on that. I think we'll sort of check back in throughout the lap. We know all logically, we've talked about this a lot, that as movies go on, as the franchise continues, as things get bigger, you have to go bigger and bolder and more expensive and crazier and whatever. Do you miss this small stakes stuff in later movies, or do you prefer going to space like Kim mentioned on the intro episode? Like, do you like, I mean, could we return to these like rumors that
because that's the rumors,
they might do a smaller movie? Like, could they come back to this?
Yeah, but
or do you think that like
movie doesn't have to feel small? So like the most kinetic movie of all time is probably Mad Max Fury Road. And the stakes are not that big. Like, yeah, they save a whole town and everything. But we're not saving the world from nuclear war or something. So, so like, yeah, I mean, but that felt so visceral and violent and fast, right? It did actually feel like it just kept going, punched you in the face over and over and over and over again.
And like, they obviously had a lot of computer generation imagery. They had a lot of touch-ups. They had a lot of things like that. I'm not one of those types who like categorically doesn't like CGI. I think that's naive in our day and age to suggest that even standard stunts could be accomplished with the verisimilitude that they are without some degree of computer enhancement, post work, things like that. And anybody, like, whenever a director tries to like say like, oh, this is all real, none of it's computer, that they're always full of shit. Like, consistently. And I don't like that because I think it removes credit from people who work very hard on a thing. But like, I do think that there is something to this movie that like feels like, even just like it's just a race along a road, felt so much more intense than even just like, I'm reminded of Fast X where they're going through Rome, right? And like, part of that is that sequence I don't think is their best. I thought it was kind of interesting that it came out the same year as a Mission Impossible movie that basically did the same chase, which was nuts to me. But like,
and did it better
because it felt like these guys were getting hurt, they were getting hit, they were in an insufficient car. And that was what I think made it fun. And so I think that, like, I haven't seen these guys on their back feet in a few flicks. And I think that this movie is good because it genuinely shows low status people trying to like rise in the world, which I think is a far more compelling story sometimes than a man who's contractually incapable of losing a fight.
We've actually been watching in between the Icons on Earth thing. So as you're bringing up like how much you enjoy the special effects in this film and how real they feel, and you mentioned that they won a bunch of awards for it. In that they talk about like all of the innovations they had making this movie. Yeah, just like it was like the first time they attached like the car to a truck that they could drive in the first one. So like that, like, yeah, like all they actually made like substantial engineering innovations, which I'm assuming is why they won all the awards and why it feels like so gritty to you, or like just like this natural, realistic feel. So yeah, I think that you're 100% right. I agree with it too, because like it does feel very, very tangible in a lot of places.
Just crashing a real car. Yeah, feels super tangible.
Yeah,
exactly.
When the NOS explodes, that is a cool explosion because, like, I think that nowadays, not to be like nowadays, back in my, but like I think like now, if a car explodes in a movie, you have the fireball. They hit the goes up, all that kind of stuff. Whereas in this one, it was like basically a 3-stage explosion where the first one is like a fire starts, and the next one is the gas goes, and then they're still running. You're like, well, what are they running from? And then the NOS goes, and like it's just like it has like, I think, a little bit more attention to detail, maybe, or just like a little bit more like thought put into some of the stunt stuff rather than just the standard like cool guy walk away from explosion stuff.
Right.
What are you laughing at?
Oh, like, oh yeah, the nuclear submarine missile will obviously track back that way.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? I don't want to get too I don't know if depressing is the right word here, but like, OpenAI just announced Sora, right? You can do this text to video crazy stuff. And like, I wonder if, in the way that they build these large language models, like they're building it based on like everything that's already been generated. Like, I wonder if you tell Sora to like, give me a video of a car exploding. Like, it's not going to do like this cool Nas blue flame explosion from this movie. It's going to be like every CGI manufacturer, because there's so many more of those. And so like, we're just going to have this like perpetual ad nauseum repetition, unless you're trying to intentionally go back to this, which I don't know.
Have you ever gone to like one of the stunt shows at a theme park, like a Universal or something?
Yeah.
And like basically they just like, we just pop you put a certain amount of gas out, you flare it, and then it goes up, and that's just, like, that is a standard effect. And like And it's important to have standard effects like that because you can't make a movie if every single effect is unpredictable, right? And so the default is always going to be, oh, we'll just do the standard flare and things like that. And any improvisation on that compounds the difficulty and the risk that they need to weigh. It was just cool seeing this movie like that. I think is where they put a little bit of the money, where like some of the effects and some of the stunts were specific effects that they designed to make this movie look different than every other car movie that had happened before. And I just dug that. I don't know. It felt a little bit more small batch, I guess, or like,
Craft.
made in a way. Yeah, craft. That, like, obviously when you have a massive product that you can't have, but like, I don't know. I just thought I dug it. I thought it was cool.
Artisanal.
Artisanal.
I know it's meant to be a sign of respect, but if we had you guys over for a party and you're like our new friends and we're mad at our current friends and we take a beer from those current friends and wipe the lid off and give it to you, would you drink that beer? Would you like, can you give me a new beer?
Well, it depends on if you then immediately leave the party to go sleep with your girlfriend upstairs. If you do that, then that's just standard host behavior.
Yeah, that seems on brand then. Exactly.
I'd take the
Massage.
beer. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, you take it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I would be nervous to drink it in front of the friend that was scorned. You know what I mean? I think that's a level of disrespect to them that I'm scared of.
Especially to Walt's point, like Dom does this thing is like, hey, fuck you, Vince. Brian, here's his beer. I'm heading up for the night.
Is Dom the worst host ever? Like,
he does say we have all these people over.
He has many people over. He says hello to none of them. He just says like, "You, Letty, you're with me. I'm gonna go upstairs," and like, then he just leaves. And like, more power to him because obviously he did just almost get arrested. But like, I can't imagine a party in my house coming in and being like, "You're with me, Leather," and then getting out of there. Like,
yeah, I think I think Kim's right. Like, I think maybe Letty is specifically the worst host because Dom is concerned about having all the guests, and she's like, "Nope, going upstairs," and he's like, "Okay." Like,
it doesn't seem like he invited the guests, right? They were everyone was already.
I also kind of get the sense that like this is just like every night there because like they're not like Vince is just flirting, Leon's flirting, Jesse's making out with a girl, Letty's just playing video games, right? Like it feels like they're just having people over.
She's ignoring everyone playing video games. I forgot. It's on the floor too, which like at a house party is an inconvenient amount of space to take up when the floor.
Oh, 100%.
I had in my notes most 1980s cops ever, and then most 1990s party ever. And it's
guitar that Vince is playing in the corner of
the Zakk Wylde guitar.
Oh no!
Just
because you also think like if it's a party, Mia might not like love Dom's friends, but like if it's a one-off thing, she'll probably be socializing. But she's like, I have homework. Like this, I can't. This is every night. Like it feels like it's just this is like what their house is. So it feels inconvenient.
Yeah.
Does it stay that way? Do you think in the things that we're not seeing in the following movies in their house? When do they stop living this particular life at the Toretto house?
Well, so there is an alternate ending to this movie where they drop Brian off at the house, right?
Yes. He comes up to the garage and Mia's in the garage.
And Mia's like packing stuff up because they have to sell the house and move because Dom's been arrested or something. It's like,
oh wow, it's
a very wildly like this is the definitive ending to this franchise. And he's just like, hey, let me help you. But like,
that's very.
Do they still have parties when Dom is in Mexico? I don't know.
No, Dom is the party. He's gravity. Everything gets pulled to him. Without Dom, there is no party. And Leon's shot. Leon's probably hiding. Jesse's dead, and Vince is shot. So like, there's no party then.
It does.
Mia's
feel like
not
the
throwing parties.
First 3 movies are the ones where there's like extras and parties and stuff like that they're throwing, right? Like Tej is throwing parties at his garage.
Yes.
Han is throwing parties at his garage. But past then, they're either going to parties other people throw, or like everyone we see is just the family.
I also think that the thing that's interesting about this movie that was different than other movie is that bear with me, this movie had sets. Like they built a diner to hang out in, they built the house. And like they return to these locations multiple times over the course of the film. In most other I almost said most other D&D flicks because I'm getting there. But in most other Furious movies, they basically start one place and then go on a journey. And like, anytime that they're together, they're in a new location hanging out. And like I think that again speaks to why this is a different kind of storytelling style than other franchises, which is that every movie is a journey. You don't always return home at the end. You don't always go like you're basically just kind of pushed forward in a way that I think that many other franchises either reset at the end of it to kind of get some sense of normalcy or have a permanent change but nevertheless maintain locations or continuity or change, whereas in this one you can be scattered to the four winds at the end of it. You get like I think it's so wild that they filmed an original ending to this that again, like I mentioned, is vaguely Hays Code, where it's like, and maybe test audiences will hate the fact that the cop didn't catch the guy, and the fact that the ambiguously mixed race dude gets away with it in Mexico, and they won't see tickets anymore. And like I do like the fact that they had the courage of their convictions to actually end it in a like somewhat ambiguity matter, and then nevertheless like I don't think that they ever like stop doing that. I think that that's a cool thing about the franchise, which is that it is a journey based franchise rather than a like an episodic one.
The journey just gets the spots they end up in get really, really diverse
you
and
just keep
far apart over
they just
over
keep
time.
leveling up every single. I think that it is so unique in that regard. Where even if like I sometimes have issues with the quality of it, like I think like nobody else is doing storytelling like that. And even just the ending of like I forgot that this was the ending. Like again, I've only seen this movie like 4 times, but I forgot that it ends with like they shoot two guys and then they go on a street race where they decide then that they're brothers and then he lets him go. And like that's just like a cool ending in a way that I didn't really expect them to have the nerve to do,
You put 80s music on that railroad jump.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then freeze frame it, end the movie, perfect.
Or, I mean, it just becomes Point Break, right? But like at the end of Point Break, you're kind of okay with him letting Bodhi get away because Bodhi ostensibly dies.
That's what I was going to say.
A cop, right?
Like,
but
Bodhi gets away, but it's not in the same sense that like Dom, like we in the end, and then in the credits you see like Dom is still alive. Like Bodhi gets away to die, so it's the same as being captured ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a completely different.
Yeah. Which is different than getting away with a crime. Like.
Yes.
Do you guys think Dom makes his own barbecue sauce, or does he buy it? Because we see him basting that chicken on the grill, and he's got the little brush, he's got a little bowl of sauce. You think he makes that sauce? You think he buys that sauce?
I have an answer. I think that you should go first.
He buys it.
Yeah?
I don't think he has time.
He's got nothing but time.
He's a busy dude.
Yeah.
He's got to take care of all these people.
I think that for a while, Dom made his own barbecue sauce, and then nobody really liked it or remarked on it. And then started getting bottles that he would then pour Heinz barbecue sauce into, and then maybe a little salt to spice it.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
He like it'll be fine. He Sweet Baby Ray's it, but like basically it's like how like I don't know if you ever worked in a restaurant, but sometimes like the house sauce is just they mix ketchup into the ranch dressing, and like I think that that's what he's doing with that, and like he still says, hey, I got the special sauce, and everybody likes it now, and so he's still getting that.
Well, does he cook in all the other films when they have barbecues? Who's cooking?
I think Dom's typically on the grill. I mean, Rico and Tego are on the grill, Leo and Sando are on the grill, but at least one of them sucks at cooking. Like,
right.
I think that Dom buys the sauce, but he has a local place that he really likes and like gets pints of it from a local place that's like artisanal craft barbecue sauce. So it is made with love, but not by him.
I mean, there's also a chance that like they make it at at Toretto's Marketing Cafe, and he just brings it home from there. Like he's not making it, but still homemade. You know what I mean? Like Mia might make it or something.
That is a curious question. I like that question. Good job.
They serve like canned tuna at the shop.
They do serve canned tuna. It is not a good time. It is not a well thought out job.
Yeah, that's not just made with love. Do you think that he carries his weight? I mean, I know that he does the books at the cafe, and I know he's worried about the mortgage and the bills there and everything like that, but like, it seems like, I mean, it also doesn't seem very busy, but like, it seems like Mia's kind of doing the work there, and she's a college kid or a high school kid.
I think that he does the work by street racing at night to get enough money to make rent. Like I think
Bingo, that was my thought.
Yeah, I think that like this is not a viable business. They should have cut bait and ran. Unfortunately, the Torettos are they are they can be persuaded to kind of keep doing something long after it ought to be over with. And I think that they are just kind of going with the flow because they never really got over their father's immolation, as is alluded to in the film.
Well, that comes back in a big way in F9, so get ready for more fiery racetrack deaths.
Daddy issues?
Is there anything about this movie that doesn't really work? Knowing where it goes, knowing it's a kickoff of thing, they're just throwing things out there. They're trying things. They're seeing what works. Aside from calling race wars. Is there stuff about this that you're like, I can't believe? Because a lot of this feels like it's a miracle that there's a second movie, let alone 11 of these, right? But like, is there anything about this that you're like, I can't believe they left that in there, other than race wars?
I think the cops are in a completely different movie. I think the police in the house are in a completely different franchise movie. Like whenever they were cast, they were just like, yeah. So basically, you're the guys in Heat, and you gotta like. You're that kind of type of guy, and just make sure that you're just kind of all friends, but this young punk, and like I just think that they think that they're in a completely different franchise, and I think that like bears out because what the franchise eventually realizes its cops need to be is dudes like Dwayne the Rock Johnson and other like super cops and things like that, like the very like modern like style of what cops kind of became, where like you had like that concept of the cop in the 80s and the cop in the 90s, where it was like the buddy cop movie kind of evaporated, right? Because cops were no longer kind of fun and interesting and like working class guys to watch. They basically became like the comedian from Watchmen, like just very competent, like very like brutal and very muscled. And so the cop movie, like the illustration of cops on screen has changed over time. That again, those gentlemen just feel like fossils. And I think that like that must have like, it could have been like a second unit thing. It could have been the director was still figuring out the tone in the editing booth. But like at the same time, it just felt like that was a completely different movie. And if you had cut all those scenes, like I think that it maybe would have been more the core of what Fast and Furious became.
It does feel like, to a certain extent, they need someone like Brian, because without a young person, they would never be able to keep up with the modern world, right? Like, they need someone, even though Brian is a terrible cop, like, he's bad at his job, he lets the criminal go, it feels like without him, they wouldn't be close. Even though it does seem like they already know it's Dom, but it feels like they need youth to, like, keep up with the modern times.
Right? I want to just briefly, before we continue to engage with the question of what does like, Brian really is an awful cop. Like, they basically have Dom dead to rights. They're like, hey, Brian, we need you to pretend to be a ragamuffin, a little scamp who knows how to drive cars, and get everything that you can on Toretto, and like never bothers to like search evidence, like never. He's just really, really bad at presumably what they sent him to do.
Because he loves him. He's like, no, it's not him, because he's my boyfriend.
I mean, yeah, not wrong. I thought it was weird to see Dominic Toretto kiss somebody in this movie, because I feel like he becomes a fairly asexual individual over the course of the film.
For sure. I think Vin largely is asexual. Like, as an actor, as a celebrity, as
you're
also,
right.
Like, so is The Rock. Like, a lot of these people are.
I think that it also became, as movies became more internationally distributed, it's a lot harder to get distribution for some of that stuff. There's just less demand for it in a lot of the territories that they're looking for. That oftentimes gets cut. And so, if you can skip it, you can skip it. But anyway, I didn't want to divert us too much from the question of Kim. What do you think could be cut from this film?
Could have been cut from this film. We talked about one-liners very briefly, but like they're obviously trying absolutely everything to get I smell skanks and things like that. Really, like to hit with the culture that's watching these movies, so people like repeat these one-liners to each other. And you know what? Like, they got better at it over time, but in this particular,
did they
I think
get better at it?
Maybe they got better at it. I don't know. When the rocks are good. Except in Fast Five. They're awful in Fast Five.
Yeah.
Give me the damn veggies. Oh boy.
Although I think, again, going back to like what I was saying at the start of the episode, like that feels like that's what makes this set apart. Like in Fate of the Furious, when they have Hobbs and Shaw like flirting with each other, basically like, can we do a spin-off movie? All it is one-liners, but it feels like they're going for a thing here, just like, we're making t-shirts. Like, one of these is going to hit, and one of these is going to be a t-shirt. And it's like,
I will say, one of them hit. I was genuinely like taken aback, because I didn't expect it was coming by the like, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. And like, obviously that has become a little bit of a mantra throughout the series, but the first time that he hits that, you're like, oh, That's actually a pretty good. I kind of understand exactly what this guy's about in a way that maybe I didn't 5 minutes ago. I can see the gears turn. Like I'm much more sympathetic to him. I imagine Brian is like it's just like that line really, really hits, and I did not expect it to because it's basically become the gotta catch 'em all of this franchise, where it's just the thing that's on all the bumper stickers and the T-shirts and all that. But like that genuinely delivered. Say like Diesel's like I think I contend, and not everybody agrees, but I contend that Diesel's a pretty good actor. And I think that like that's a moment where you were like, oh man, no, you did a good job there, Mr. Diesel.
There's a weird bit about that whole speech though, and
Yeah.
the line right after it, I believe, has to do with how he doesn't have to like worry about his family time, but throughout this entire film series, he's always worried about his
Constantly
family.
worried about his family.
So yeah, maybe he says he's happiest in the moment where he's not like thinking about his family. So
Yep.
Worry is a different connotation than like thinking about, right? So like I think that if he's not worried about his family in that one moment, it's because he's doing the thing that he's best at. He's in a flow state, you know?
of course.
Yeah. I don't know. I dug that a lot. I thought that was great.
It does hit really nice, and and even if it's kind of cheesy, like quarter mile at a time, it's concise. You know exactly what he's saying. You're absolutely right. It just puts you right there, and you're like, "Yep, that sounds like something he would say." It fits the theme of the movie, and it makes sense.
So I want to play a little bit of a thought experiment game here that I don't think we've ever done before, but I think, looking at this franchise the way that we are, it kind of makes sense to do it now. Imagine you walk out of the theater in 2001 having seen this movie, and I know that like it's a different time and like sequels are not guaranteed. It's not like every successful thing becomes a sequel because like that's Hollywood is out of ideas. But if you're leaving that theater or you're an executive at Universal, like this is a hit, we need a second one. Like what would you expect as, someone who had just seen this movie? Like what would you hope for a sequel like Too Fast, Too Furious to be? Because like it being like, well, we're following this one guy across the country with a whole brand new group of people. Like, that's not what I would expect. That's not what I would want either, I don't think. Like, what's the story you would want to follow this up with?
I'm so glad that you asked this because I actually, the earliest part of this franchise, anything before 4, I'm actually rather loose on. Like, I haven't seen the other ones. And so I actually, like, do not recall as much of 2 and nor even as much as 3 as I imagine everyone else does. And so like where would I take this franchise next is like it's such a good question because is it like do you get the heist crew back together? Is it do you follow Walker as he investigates a new group of people? I think that the issue is that like the most successful part of this movie, which is that like fascinating tension between Vin Diesel and Paul Walker that I think is just based on chemistry, is like the least like a serializable element of it, right? It's like you can obviously make the cop serial, you can obviously make the criminal serial, you can obviously like carry those stories forward, but like the entanglement between them, like in any situation like that, you're getting into a potential Team Rocket scenario where it's just like, oh well, the cops they're gonna lose every time or something. Like, and so like I'm glad that like I also from that point of view is like if you think about most franchises at this point in Hollywood, all of them are trilogies. Nothing except like James Bond and a couple of the horror stuff goes beyond just a trilogy and then they're done, right? Like Jurassic Park trilogy and they're done. Think of the big movies in the 90s that actually made sequels and they're usually trilogies, at least at this point in history. And like, if you think about like, based on what I recall from this franchise, if they never made anything after 3, and they just had this trilogy of films, it makes no fucking sense. Like,
not a cent. No,
it makes no sense whatsoever. And like, it is the most taken as a trilogy. I would argue it is an abject failure because it does not actually like it's basically like a thematic trilogy. You barely follow the through lines between these characters that much, and like it's so kind of fascinating to see like how. Not only did they then immediately right the ship, but they like perfectly locked it in to become one of like defining franchises of its decade. But like, where do I take it from here? I don't know because I would find it like maybe like Walker gets a promotion to Interpol and has to chase him down.
I think we're overcomplicating things. Yeah. Okay, ready? If you look at this from a professional wrestling standpoint, okay?
I was waiting for
there is a tag team being created here between Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor, right? So that has to come together in the second movie because they've not like fully joined forces yet. They had, they had an argument. They went back and forth a little bit and finally they left it there, but with a newfound respect for one another. So in the next film, you figure out how to get those two puzzle pieces together, have them intertwine throughout the plot until finally by the end of it, like Hobbs and Shaw did in their storyline. They become that tag team with all these tertiary characters.
Isn't that just
So you're pitching the fourth movie, basically.
Yeah, it should be the second movie. Like they went on two like extreme detours before they got there. That was always the movie.
There's a very funny thing that Joe mentioned. We're watching Icons Unearthed, and we're like, we've seen them cover up through like the sixth movie, and it's funny to hear these people talk about like only in like making the fifth movie that they're like, this is when we started planning like for future movies too. It's like you've made so many of these movies to not think about what comes next. Like I love that they're just like playing so fast and loose, but it's crazy that they're just like, yeah, whatever, we'll figure it out. It's just like
I will put
Miami.
just because I think that like again like this is a fundamentally different kind of storytelling style than anything else, and I think the fact that it is completely unplanned until the fifth adds a little bit of charm to it in the same way that comic book arcs have a charm. Just like a lot of comic book arcs, like you said, like, okay, you're going to get 5 issues. And like, if there's an audience at issue 5, we'll maybe get you a few more. And then if you're able to build that audience, then you can have an arc. Nobody says like, okay, you have a 20-issue arc of Hawkeye, have fun. It's always like you get basically 5 to prove it. And if you don't prove it, then they're going to cancel it. And then they'll figure out a new writer to take on the character in a little bit. And so that's really what happened with this, right? Like they made an arc and they were like, this is great, let's continue it going. And then they like took the arc in a weird direction. They're like, we're gonna do a reset. And they took the arc in a different direction. They're like, we're gonna do a reset. And then they were like, okay, we'll get the creative parts back into play. And it's just like it's a different style of storytelling than like you see in Hollywood a lot. But like in wrestling, in comic books, that is how it's done. Like in soap operas, that's how it's done. You try shit out, and if it doesn't hit, you change it, and if it works, you really triple down on it.
But they're not spending hundreds of millions of dollars
to
make the movies on these long shot ideas that they're just throwing at a wall, seeing what sticks, and coming back and starting over.
That is an element.
It's like a
problem, yes. Like,
it's just a wild idea. Yeah, like I fully agree with you. You're like, yeah, in soap operas, you're like, well, this thing has been on for 40 years, and like, they're not paying that much to make them, so.
That's part of it. I also think that, it is a bit misguided to do that, but it worked out.
Like, it did. It absolutely did. That we're here.
But did it work because they did that, or in spite of them doing that?
In spite of. Yeah, I mean, I think so. But like, I would be sad if we lived in a world without Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
So
I disagree. I think it worked because of it. I think it worked because, like, there's this idea of like, like when you get stuck in a rut, it's because like there are like better places that more would maximize the thing that you like, but it's just like getting over that hill on either side is what gets you stuck there. It's a local minima, right, or a local maxima, and you can't get to the actual good stuff unless you like do something crazy that kind of puts you over the edge. Right?
Like the question there is like, why did people go and watch the fourth film after the second and third one? It's aimless now. Like, what are we gonna do?
Oh, Mr. Wrestler, is there any possible history of two people who are really good together being kept apart arbitrarily
until finally
they come back at sacrifice or something like that? Right? Do I have that right, Kim?
Yeah, it's got
do I have the vernacular?
You got the vernacular.
Great.
Nailed it.
I think like we've said this before, but I think there's something like that Joe and I really enjoy looking forward to after we finish a lap and coming back here, because these early movies feel messy and chaotic in a way that like the later ones, again, we love the later ones, but they feel like this is where we have to do, these are the beats we have to hit to get to a thing. And here they're just like, I don't know, we're figuring it out we're all figuring it out. You know what I mean? It's to watch them all on loop, and then to see
reset.
Because 5 and 6 are like these like high points, and then it's like, okay, then 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. Like we're figuring things out. Like we're approaching an end game here. And then to get back here and be like, I cannot believe that this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise based on this one movie. It just feels insane.
It's really interesting to see, like, there's so many just extra side characters, right, that exist there that they end up bringing back 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies down the line. That it's just ripe for the nerding out for the people who watch all these movies to grasp hold of these characters. Everyone but Ja Rule, I suppose.
Is there anything from this movie that you wished they would bring back that they didn't? That you're like, that's an interesting thread that I wish they explored more fully and they just dropped?
I absolutely have an answer, but Kim, you go.
Is yours not Ja Rule?
No, mine is mine is. I think Johnny's great. I think he's an amazing villain. I think that
I was gonna say, yep, I agree with you. I was gonna say Johnny
just be
Tran.
like, and he got better. He was wounded. Oops, and now he's got revenge. And then friends become enemies. Enemies become lovers. It's like it makes sense. Bring it
Then
back.
he's the bad guy in Hobbs and Shaw. No problem.
He's great. I mean, he's
Exact. Somebody has said that. We've had fans like, who is the head of Eteon? You're like, why isn't it Johnny Tran? He's still pissed off. Like he's still out there.
We had Chrissy Shackelford during the writer's strike when she was not writing for Last Week Tonight. She was a guest on our show, and she talked about she has this theory that in her mind, because we've seen so many characters come back from the dead in this franchise, she has this theory that if Dom does not see someone die, they are not dead, and Dom is nowhere near Johnny Tran's supposed death location. I also do feel like if at this point, I mean, look, if they want to make a movie smaller, if they want to bring it back to like basics and origin, whatever, bring back the villain from the first movie, it's the perfect time to do it. But I also feel like most people who maybe have seen the original movie once or like 15 years ago or whatever, be like, wait, who's this?
Yeah.
Like if he's like the big bad, I don't know, but we would love it.
They did that they had to re-explain it with Jason Momoa, right? They went through the whole process of making everyone
that was very
clear
really
who this
stupid.
person was.
That was really stupid, and I liked it a lot. I mean, they invent characters out of what I mean. You can use clearly there's a lot on the cutting room floor from this movie.
Johnny, he checks his pulse, right, and then tells someone to call 911.
Yeah, but he's the worst cop in the world, and clearly doesn't know how to, he doesn't know how to not say
No,
I'm a cop.
he says he tells him to call 911 as if this person could still be.
As he doesn't go call the morgue and then ends on the phone. Get the coroner down
that
here.
That would have been a better one-liner.
That's not bad. But he's like, call 911. Yeah, so I make him alive. I would like that a lot. You need to they would need to start setting this up 2 movies ago. Yes, but I think it's important.
I think with the Momoa thing, they can just pivot that because they're like, your past will come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
The seeds are there. You know what I mean? It's not unfathomable that they're like, oh, by the past we meant Jason Momoa and Johnny Tran.
It is a little funny that if this gentleman who rides a motorcycle and shoots things with Uzis does end up running an international spy cartel. That would be a fun, I would watch that.
I'm so down. Yeah.
I would watch that movie. I would watch the Fast and the Furious spinoff of showing his rise from the hospital bed in LA through owning
with
Cypher.
You want Johnny Tran as the main character?
Yeah.
No, I'm in.
But this has to be a miniseries, right?
I've seen he's in it has to be a miniseries to bring him to where he is.
Peacock,
yeah.
Get on this. Peacock, this is exactly what we're here for.
He plays Kublai Khan's brother, I believe.
He's still with us
in Marco Polo on Netflix.
Not bad.
Yeah, he's still around.
Anything else? I think there are big takeaways from this first movie that you either forgot about entirely, and it might be easier for Walt to answer than Kim, because Kim's seen it as much as we have. Things you completely forgot about, things that you're excited to see where they go, if they go. Takeaways from watching this movie 23 years later with the future of the franchise in question. I also don't want I want to make sure that people listening to the show aren't oh, they're such downers. There might not be another movie, but it's just it's a weird time to be a fan of this franchise. I want to make sure that we're watching through that lens. So I'm not saying we don't know what's coming next, because we genuinely don't know what's coming next. Although they did confirm Alan Ritchson as Ames is returning in Fast 11, so he's coming back. So
cool. I think that we are down on this franchise. We are not down on this franchise. This franchise is a miracle. That is when we were we want to talk to you guys about this and come on potentially there's a franchise I can think of where sometimes 2 friends join up for a run of movies, and it's fun. And so I think that this franchise is a unicorn. I think it is I don't know how it I was scrolling through to be man, can you think of another 2000s, early 2000s movie that you could get this much mileage out of, that you can get 10 movies to spin off and have it go from being very low, what would that even look like? And the answer is no. You can't what this thing accomplished is phenomenal. And so even regardless of what comes next, it is worth studying this because it's like it feels organic in a way that no other franchise really feels. Every other franchise feels like they have the book that it's based on and they're going to adapt the book. They're going to split the book up into these 3 chapters. You know what's probably going to happen in each movie when you get into it. Each one is sequential. Even the ones that aren't, things like Mission Impossible, you know that most of the plot and most of the characters are, just kind of draped over a very good sequence of stunts. Whereas like this film series is I think like either the future of all of this, right? Where it's like taking the storytelling styles of comic books, of wrestling, of these serialized storytelling things, and making that just so what it is moving forward, or it is genuinely the last of its kind. And we will never see anything like this happen again because nobody's making movies like The Fast and the Furious anymore for them to have 9 sequels to, right? Nobody's doing original things anymore that aren't based on pre-existing IP. And obviously this is based on pre-existing IP, but Vibe magazine articles ain't exactly the holy text, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think that this movie is so insane, and it's also just shocking that other franchises have kind of walked in these footsteps, right? Like,
but is this movie so insane?
No,
The
this
first
franchise.
one? Yeah, right.
This franchise is. So to be clear, I'm talking about like this organism that we are seeing, right? This multicellular organism that is the Fast and the Furious, right? The film, this little first cell, right? This primordial piece of goop is a fascinating thing to look at. It's like a fossil that has too many legs. I can't look away from it. It looks weird. I like it. It's compelling. It does not exist anymore. You could never make it today. And
No.
I don't know. I just think like it is just kind of fascinating to watch what it grew into, right? And I think what it grew into is truly exciting in a way that I think very few things are, because I think that no other, there's just nothing else like this. And I think that when you guys go around this track every time, I think it's exciting just because I think this is worthy of thought, because like they have done something here that really they got away with it, right? That like in ways these movies should not have happened, these sequels should not have happened. These casts shouldn't have succeeded based on the prevailing conventional wisdom within Hollywood at the time. Like there's so many reasons that this shouldn't have worked. And not only has it worked, but like, during what we would maybe call its many heydays, like it had some of the most high box office, diverse audiences, global appeal, the kind of things that you really can't buy. Like it just organically built that up. And so I think that it's worthy of, thought, respect, and I'm very excited for what comes up, even if the future is a bit nebulous, just because there's nothing else like this thing that we're talking about.
I do wonder, like what you were saying in that, like I wonder if this is almost like sort of grandfathered in at Universal, like we're never doing this again, but like let's see how this goes. Because there's always going to be sequels, there's always going to be franchises, there's always going to try to make more things that people like, but the craziness with which there are 11 of these movies and maybe up to 12, 13, 14, who knows how many, it's like Barbie made $1.2 billion or whatever, right? Like, is that going to be around as a franchise in 23 years? Probably not. I mean, like, as a movie franchise?
I think it's, like, the one that is closest to it is, I think, Bond, right? Mm-hmm. You have a cast of characters who has a new set of encounters every time. They try to raise the stakes. Action-based franchise. Nevertheless, you really care about the people involved. But like even this has additional subtext going between it, right? Because in Bond, like, it's very episodic. They'll change out the cues, they'll change out the characters occasionally. But in this, like, it really does feel like, they are doing, arguably a multi-generational storytelling style that you don't see in film. You just don't. It's in other mediums that we've talked a bunch about, but like you don't see it in movies. And I think that like even the MCU derives itself from comic books. It has an interconnected arc, but is aggressively planned. Whereas this really does kind of seem like they start with a blank page every new film, and there's an excitement to that.
Because I think, like, you were saying a multi-generational thing. Like, the Bond movies reset. Every time there's a new Bond, like, it resets. But I think there's an equal chance that the Fast and Furious fully reboots, or is just like it's Dom's kid is the star of the next bunch of movies. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it could go either way, which feels insane.
Like a full like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of reboot with the same characters but new people.
I think that there's a timeline here that absolutely happens. I've thought about it before, that there's a situation where we like just tuck it for 10 years, and then we just get the like, hey, we're out of ideas. Let's do Fast and the Furious again. And they just literally start from the first one and just go.
Well, gentlemen, I have a bit of a counterpoint, if not a fulfillment of what you're describing, which is that this franchise, this humble franchise, which started off boosting car stereos from containers in the LA. This franchise has gone to other countries. It has gone to Mexico. It has gone to Europe. It has gone to Asia. It has gone to Dubai.
CIA black sites.
It has gone to CIA black sites. It has gone to the Arctic Ocean. Hey, Kim, do countries own the Arctic Ocean? No. It's gone to places where no man controls anything. It's gone to the sky. It's gone to space. It hung out in space and landed from space, and no one died. Good times. This franchise has gone everywhere, except it hasn't gone back. And when Dom Toretto says that we started this thing, a fundamentally illogical statement, maybe Dom Toretto did start that thing. Maybe this whole franchise is leading to 2 words, gentlemen.
Race Horse?
Oh, no.
I thought you were going to say they have not gone truly underwater and like it's a
Center of
James
the Earth.
Cameron.
I thought Center of the Earth.
No, it's Race War.
We're going back in time and starting Race Wars. It's a great idea. We came.
Don't say starting Race War.
We're going to start a race war. We're going to go back to, I guess, the 70s.
Plural.
Start some race wars.
Yeah.
And,
January 6th? Sorry.
that date means nothing to me. I'm in the 1970s.
Since we've last recorded, Christopher Nolan's out here in these streets talking about how much he loves these movies, wanting to watch all of them with Stephen Colbert, right? Like, he's now talking he wants to do a horror movie. Like, Louis Leterrier did a serviceable job as a fill-in for Fast 10, but, like, why can't we get... I mean, I know James Cameron's doing the Avatar things, but why can't we get a Christopher Nolan? Why can't we get a Tarantino? I know he's doing
I'll tell you why.
thing, but like,
because there's an auteur to this franchise, and his name is Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
Yes,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah, you have to be compatible with
They
Vin.
need someone to
Or
be
like we see,
subservient.
Justin Lin, you sometimes have to
Yeah, sometimes you got to
get out of the way.
Yeah.
Kim, I don't remember the question that I asked Walt. Do you have an answer to the question of Walt?
Yeah. What was that question?
I don't remember.
It was probably about some whatever. Like,
are you down on the franchise? Are you cool?
oh yeah, I mean, of course I am. Like, yeah, like it's as you said, just uncanny, right? Like, how did this possibly work? And yet we're here, and there's something about the level up nature of all this that makes you want to see them level up more, right? Like, I don't they can take this anywhere at this point, but I want to see the level up of these D&D characters.
Yeah,
when they get to level 20 and they're virtually unstoppable, like, what happens?
I think
We'll find out.
recruit a team. They got to recruit a team.
They have a team. They are a team.
I know, but they need a bigger team.
Bigger team. Okay, got it.
Nothing quite like a bigger team. That's what you got. Like, sometimes you think you have a big team, but the threats are bigger than you are. You know?
Usher would be great.
Usher would be dope.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of
Usher, yeah, Super Bowl hype. I like
Usher
it,
on
yeah.
roller skates,
Oh, yeah, that's a vehicle.
featuring Ludacris at that halftime show, right? Like, he's there. We got the
Oh,
in.
that's right. He was already there. Yeah.
You could have watched that connection happen. Like, maybe that's where the pitch came. You know,
It's canon now.
ushering in a new era.
Oh no,
Fast and the Furious. The poster writes itself.
Yeah.
Joe, any final thoughts about this movie before we play a game?
I'm so happy that we're watching it with Walt and Kim.
Aw.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. This is very fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the game, but like I'm very happy that our very stupid idea found purchase.
Oh, of course.
It's super bizarre. Just last note on this. Super bizarre that to watch Ja Rule in a movie after all the Fire Festival stuff.
That is true.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I don't think I'd watch this.
Weirdly,
and to remember that he said no, he was too big to continue to be.
Well,
in
he said, "Give me $50 million," and they said, "No, we'll get Ludacris for a lot less than that," and it worked out.
yeah. Is Race Wars only the second least successful festival that Ja Rule's been a part of?
I mean, Race Wars is still around, and they didn't serve sad cheese sandwiches or whatever. So,
Can we go?
That's
to that?
true.
Like in the real world, is it around, or is this just a Fast and Furious thing?
I mean, it's based on things that I'm sure are still around, but I don't think they're called Race Wars.
You want to go to an illegal street race in Queens?
I do not want to go to any race wars.
I'm not saying Race Wars in illegal street racing.
We can do that. Yeah,
We can do that. Probably.
that we can do.
We could just kind of follow our ears.
We're not going to be. We're not racing. I can't drive.
No,
I don't have.
You are Canadian and you don't have a license. I'm
We're
aware
in
of
New
this.
York. Okay.
New York. We do not do that. But like,
Please, if you find one, let us know,
I will absolutely.
Yeah.
do now. Yes.
and we'll get to Queens probably at 2:30 in the morning for whatever this race is.
That's when the race starts.
when races happen.
Of course.
Yeah. Got it.
Of course. All right, we have a game to play. This ain't no 10-second race, a.k.a. Boy Do We Have a Podcast for You.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Come and check out our show. Yeah.
This is where we go on twitter.com or x.com, although the redirect is still there. It's still twitter.com. I don't know what he's doing with that. Maybe he doesn't have enough engineers. Who knows? Go on twitter.com, a.k.a. the Bird app, and find any tweet from anyone tweeting about these movies. Respond to them as Too Fast, Too Forever, and try to get them to watch the show. So let me first look back at our last episode's picks. We had Zaki Hassan on to talk about Fast 10. And I don't remember. I think maybe Joe, did Zaki get points?
I think so. Like
while
as we were
playing. Recording?
Yes, while we were recording, yes.
And I don't think I did, because I never do. I found please, in parentheses, at DeMac1214 forever. I can't believe they made Fast 10 without knowing where the series would go next. Have you watched these movies before? And we said, as Brian said in Fast and Furious 6, they're going to do what they do best, improvise. It's all part of the journey. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. It got 2 likes, but from Aaron and Randy, so no.
Oh, sad.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Joe, you found Ryan Eads at Ryan2499. I decided a month ago to check out the Fast and Furious movies. Hadn't seen one, not really my thing. Just got through Fast 10, and now I'm on every site I can find on the theories moving forward. And man, I miss B. Hashtag ride or die, hashtag family. We said, Ryan, buckle up, because we have almost 400 episodes full of thoughts and theories. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. It got a reply from Reaction Rocket. It got 3 likes. It got Aaron and Randy again, but also Ryan. So, Joe, you get a point.
Bing on the board. Thank you.
But Reaction Rocket replied saying, whenever I read tweets like this, it's like how I know how Jimmy Stewart felt at the end of It's a Wonderful Life when Clarence gets his wings. Every time a tire screeches, a Fast fan joins the family. And then Zaki found Esarty at Esarty. I'm about 45 minutes into hashtag Fast 10, and it's so OTT, over the top, and hammy, possibly the most video game-like movie ever. Everyone's committing to their roles so completely you can't help but go with it. It's like the movie equivalent of Royal Rumble. Every few minutes, a familiar face runs in and joins the action. We said that about sums it up. We think so too. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Got 2 likes from Aaron and Esarty. So Zaki also gets a point. So you guys each get 1 point. Excellent. I get nothing. Swing and a miss.
It is like the rope.
So
incredible.
Yeah.
So now I want to see here. I'm going to assume, just because this game is impossibly difficult to play, that neither of you scored points when we played it last time. But let me just take a look. Walt, you have 0, and Kim, you also have 0. But that could all change. That could all change.
It's easy to move up the ranks quickly. It really is.
It really, like, it can, they reply, you get 5 points all of a sudden. It's just like, whoa, this is,
so strategic about this.
Serious spending. Did either of you find a tweet? Can you put a tweet either in the Zoom chat or Twitter or wherever you want to send it to us?
I will send it to you over Twitter. I have, I'm going to get cute with this. So in May 2023, after the film Fast X came out, one of the many fake Twitter accounts that is attempting to imitate discussing film, which is, one of those massive this Bhasin film, tweeted out the, erroneous and not correct and made up story. Vin Diesel is planning to campaign for the Academy Award for Best Actor for his role as Dom Toretto in Fast X. Quote, I've welcomed so many people to my family over the years. Now it's time for the Oscar welcome me to his. Source deadline. This is not a real thing. It did not happen. However, I would like the account to tweet at this Bhasin film and say, I also think it's bullshit this didn't happen. Because now we know who the Best Actor nominees are, and regrettably, the Academy in its infinite neglected to honor the role. And I think that is where I'd like to take this.
What if, hear me out, a Numlock News Awards supplement thing was all about the Vin Diesel snub? Just the entire, this one comes from Walter.
But I am this close, listener. I'm putting my fingers very close. This close to booking a syndication deal. I can't mess this. No, but I will. Yeah, I will look into that. I think that's a good mailbag thing. We have a mailbag at the end of the year. You should send in the question. I will absolutely dive down.
Can you believe that Mr. Vin Diesel has not? Yeah,
I think that if he actually made the Hannibal movie, he would have a shot. not even joking with that. I think that if he played Hamilcar in the Hannibal movie that he's been talking about for years, that could genuinely be the Oscar bait.
Kim, did you find a tweet?
Yeah, I got one. I am sending it to you in a moment. So this is from @PurpleRob. He says, today is Dominic Toretto's favorite day in Ontario. Happy Family Day. The third Monday of February every year in Canada is Family Day.
Really?
Where we celebrate families.
That's a really cute holiday. I like that. I didn't know about that. So we got a cultural exchange this episode too. There you go.
That's great.
Kim, how would you like to respond to this tweet?
I would like to respond, Happy Family Day, Mr. Purple Rob. XOXO love you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have a little Legolas and Gimli thing going on this entire arc, where we're counting up our scores on this, and I'm gonna beat you by the end of it. It's gonna be great.
Ooh.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Gimli, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, if either of you get points, we all win.
We all win.
I couldn't agree more.
Joe, please hit us with your tweet.
I have a tweet from @SteelMagnolia_.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
It's pretty good. She starts by tagging Vin Diesel and says, "My mom claims to be the biggest Fast and Furious fan, but didn't even watch the new movie today like she was supposed to. Told her I was gonna snitch. Frowny face."
Oh, so she's pulling a Brian. She's trying to appeal to Vin Diesel's good side by being a rat.
Unbelievable.
You totally swayed my brain of what I was going to respond with that. And I don't want to reply aggressively like that. I want to be like, well, Meg, your mom is still part of the family. Girl, do we have a podcast? Girls, do we have a podcast for you?
I found one. I don't know if I feel good about it or not, but I found one from...
Sometimes those hit. So just like go with your gut and send it.
Guys, I cannot tell you how we're like, this person... Their profile picture's Carly Rae Jepsen. Their bio's about Paddington 2. They tweeted about the Fast and the Furious and how much I love podcasts. And I'm just like, these are all my favorite things. Like they just ignore it. Like it's the ones that you don't expect to hit that actually hit. So I don't know.
That's true.
Joe, this is related to you. I'm going to. It's there's a little bit of a visual component to this. So I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay, let me see.
This is from Kid Phantasm @CB Bruno.
Okay.
Screw Ford v Ferrari, the Fast and the Furious, and all those other car movies. I want a full movie about this beauty and its former Hartford Whalers.
No, it's not just any Zamboni.
Let's go Whalers.
It's a Whalers.
Hartford Whalers.
Hartford Whalers Zamboni.
Brian Late Night Rodriguez would be so happy. It's one of his favorite things is the Whalers and them existing in their logo.
And so he tweeted this today. Like this is a tweet from today.
Wow.
You'd be like, as someone who's covered Ferrari on this episode, as someone who watches all the Fast and the Furious movies.
Simply, why not both?
#Brass Band. Brass Bonanza. What was their goal song? The Whalers had a very specific goal song, and I think you could drop it in for bonus cred.
Brass Bonanza, song by the Hartford Whalers.
Yeah.
Why not both? # why not a Brass Bonanza Danza Kuduro mashup?
I would actually jam out to that a lot. Because it's got all the right brass instruments. Oh man, I'm gonna pay a guy on Fiverr to make that. Give me $5.
That was incredible. Good find, Joey. I really like that. Whalers Zamboni, top tier, dude.
Yeah.
This could work.
He's not kidding. He's literally doing this right now. Yeah.
Oh wow. I'm not gonna say anymore. Okay, great.
Kim, did you send us a tweet somewhere or no?
I think I did. Maybe not. Here we go. Coming.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this first of many episodes to go.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having us. We are so thrilled to be your guests. It is a very, very fun experience, and thank you so much for your listeners just for checking this out and also supporting us. So yeah.
Is there anything you would like to plug? I name dropped by name Numlock News, the award supplement, but Anything you want to plug? Anywhere people, listeners of the show, can find you? Anywhere, any work you've been doing lately you want people to find?
I'm just going to shill the book. You should buy You Are What You Watch. And yeah, it's fun. It's available wherever books are sold. It's getting a reprint. It's sold pretty well so far. So, so buy it wherever books are available. You Are What You Watch.
Okay, I have a big fangirl ask, and I've been saving it.
Of course.
I need a signed copy of the book, please, Mr. Walt.
Yeah.
He bought it already.
I already have one, and I would like to buy and have another one signed, and then we would like to give away a copy to one of our patrons.
That's super doable. Yes, I can get a copy of the book and get it signed for your patrons. I can also I'll get a copy to you. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, wonderful. We'll pay for them, obviously. Yes.
Yep.
Awesome.
And if any listeners want to buy a signed copy, the Astoria Bookshop, if you search, we live in Queens, New York.
Oh,
the
cool.
Astoria Bookshop, they basically text me whenever they get a new shipment in, and I go over and sign all of them. So any book that you order from them that is this book, almost certainly is going to be signed. So
very, very cool. Awesome tip.
Kim, what about you? Anything you want to plug?
I got nothing at the moment because we gotta keep on Walter's thing right here. I mean,
God damn it!
I'm serious. Like you don't release a book every year, right? So
Not yet, at least.
oh my goodness, I do not currently have a book out. So no, we're sticking with this for now. I'll have some stuff.
Love it.
Yeah.
I will also plug Walt's book, which I read cover to cover. Loved it. We had these academic researchers on who like edited a book of essays for The Fast and the Furious, and I'm like, yeah, I read the whole book. They're like, you did? I was like, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like, I think you're the only person who isn't us to have read this book.
Yes,
like,
it was
fully.
really funny.
I'm like, okay, but
Academics
we
is
were
my
interviewing
favorite
you guys.
book for that exact reason. It takes just so much like love to make a thing that is like
Mhm.
not going to be read by a lot of people, really, really loved by a few. So that's very cool.
And fun fact: the four of us on this podcast right now have a total of 1 Pulitzer Prize.
Yes, I have 25% of a Pulitzer Prize
we're
right now on this
killing it.
podcast.
That's how it works.
On average,
Well,
we all have a quarter of a Pulitzer Prize.
but also technically, I did it's me and 3 other people. So you all be 1/16th, perhaps.
1/6. That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's more than I had this morning.
But yeah, thanks for having us. I'm so excited for this year. This is just, we love the podcast and we love you guys. And so, thank you for having us. This is going to be a very exciting journey. I'm very excited for where they take this franchise next, which is definitely going to be, what Fast 4 should have been.
Yeah, I'm glad you haven't seen the first couple movies in a while.
It's been so long. It's going to be very exciting.
And now you have homework. You have to go watch the deleted scenes, specifically the
Absolutely,
Vince
yes.
at the dinner at the picnic table, the barbecue table, and also the alternate ending, which is there's a lot of deleted scenes from this movie, but those are the two that you gotta watch.
When you describe that as homework, you could not be more wrong. You have just had a delightful evening.
I mean, you're just a student who loves class.
Just a student who loves class. Little teacher's pet.
Our next main feed episode, our first pit stop this lap, is Predator from 1987. Before then, though, our patrons will get the bonus episode about RPM from 1998, which we've recorded already. So if you want to go check out a movie that weirdly sort of kind of inspired the Fast and Furious and Gone in 60 Seconds, even though no one saw this movie, check out RPM. Also, give a special shout out to our patrons, Cassie Wilson, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleiman, and Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party, Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden Renato, Di Donato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, Tom Price, Mike Gallier, Josh Buckley of Whole Lot of Wolves, Michael Moser, thank you for this whole lap, Christian Larson, Tara New One, Aaron Willows, Natalie Absolute, Randy Carter, Josh Gularm, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. Thank you all. If you want to join them, go to toofast2forever.com, and for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/toofast2forever, or at toofast2forever everywhere on the internet. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page, like I mentioned, at toofast2forever.com. Our store at toofast2forever. Nope, cageclub.me/shop. We did not pay for that store domain because it was too expensive. And come back next week for Predator. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was two men who each averaged a quarter of a Pulitzer, Kim Bhasin and Walt Hickey, and we will tell you all about it
When we see you again.